So, that basically is the evidentiary foundation for the argument I wish to make, which is that when we are measuring, studying income inequality, the reasonable thing to do is not to make an a priori causal assertion, but to ask what is the empirical relationship that we actually can find in the evidence. There are all kinds of a priori causal assertions that are being made, which I find I'm somehow identified with sometimes. People haven't read what I say, which take the following form. Raghuram Rajan has his book Fault Lines, which is a nice example of this, that says that, well, inequality rose, and as a result of that, middle-income people took out debts for things they couldn't afford, bigger houses, boats, cars, and so forth, and got into a vast amount of trouble. And that's basically inequality caused the crisis kind of story that Rajan tells in his book. And I suggest that that is a story for which it's not that there's no evidence behind the idea that a few people took out loans for consumption goods that they couldn't afford and got into trouble. But that this is not what my reading of the evidence suggests is driving the measures of economic inequality that we have. Instead, what we see is that rising inequality and the onset of financial instability are two aspects of the same thing. The measurement of the inequality is essentially a type of measure of this other phenomenon. Because what it's picking up is the income of the bankers and the incomes of the people who are going into debt to the bankers largely for business purposes, either business investment in the 1990s or real estate investment in the middle 2000s. Then this shows up in the inequality measures as concentrated incomes in a handful of hands. So just thinking about a useful way to think about this whole issue, I have an analogy which unfortunately isn't in the book. It's a kind of thing that, when you're leaving the party in the elevator, and you say, I only have that particularly posted mine. I don't know, but it seems to me that the inequality measures that we have are very similar to blood pressure. That is to say, that there's a healthy range. And within that healthy range, generally speaking, lower is considered to be better. That is to say, it's associated with a more vibrant and efficient organism. However, one can go too low. And, there is a measure of zero blood pressure. This is found in the morgue and nowhere else. So one has to be cautious about the lower bound. It's sensible. But this is a healthy one. And then when you see that measure going above the top of the healthy range, what you're looking at is a sign of trouble, a sign of danger that is not necessarily symptomatic in the short run. People, in fact, can enjoy enormously the boom that's associated with a rising inequality measure. And that was true in the 1990s, and it was true for some people in the mid-2000s. But it's a sign that you're at a risk of some major crisis. And that's, of course, what did happen in 2007, 2008. We had the major crisis. And I think we have not come to grips with the fact that the kind of crisis that it was, we tend to treat it as a passing and transitory event. But a crisis of this kind is actually system impairing and changes the trajectory going forward in a fundamental and not very appealing way. So in all respects, it seems to me the analogy is a pretty reasonable one so far as analogies in this form of social science go. Thanks very much.